Shall we start? In Deuteronomy, it says, "The eternal God is your dwelling place, and underneath are the everlasting arms." Friends, we are gathered here today to remember Ruth Elizabeth McLeod, Betsy Johnson. We come together with a combination of grief, love, and enormous pleasure when we think about such a life as the one she just completed. We think about the wonder of her personality, the way she lived life so fully. We also cannot avoid the sad realization that she has gone. And so today we are drawn together to offer one another comfort as we mourn her passing. We come here in this village where she grew up, this church where her faith was formed, to celebrate her vitality, her sense of adventure, her humor, and her love for so many others. A student who loved reading from a very early age and then went on to attend Radcliffe College. She was a natural teacher herself and shared her enthusiasm for education with generations of young people, starting with her own children. While she grew up here, Betsy Johnson had such a confident sense of adventure that the world was literally her home. And she navigated the life of the wife of a diplomat all over Europe and the Far East. Her love for children was contagious, and she and her husband Chad welcomed David, Andrew, Sarah, Emily, Jeffrey, and Mark, along with lots of grandchildren. But she also taught school in Philadelphia, in Tokyo, in Bethesda, at Sidwell Friends, and here in Amherst at the Common School. With all the children under her influence, she shared her values and her belief that we must all work to make the world a better and more just place. So today, we celebrate almost a century of vital life. Her birthday was this Wednesday. If you look at her dates, she would have been 99. We also come to thank God for her personality, for the life in her that was so strong and indomitable, for her character, for her vision of a better world, for her grit, and for her grace. Now, my colleague Rachel will light the chalice.
Do you want me to use this?
This, yeah, but you just turn it on. There you go.
I am the Reverend Rachel Hayes, minister of the Unitarian Universalist Society of Amherst, where Betsy was a beloved member. At the beginning of worship, many Unitarian Universalist congregations light a flame in a chalice. The flaming chalice serves as a symbol of commitment burning bright. Betsy and Chad Johnson donated this chalice to the UU Society of Amherst, and we light it together to begin each service in our sanctuary. Today, we light it with memories of Betsy. May this time of memory and love burn brightly here and in the hearts of everyone who holds Betsy in heart and mind today.
Our hymns today have all been chosen by Betsy herself, so we begin with "The Lord's My Shepherd" in the red pilgrim hymnal in your pew. Please rise.
Betsy Johnson was a bright light for decades at the Unitarian Universalist Society of Amherst. I was honored to know her as her minister for nearly the last 6 years of her long life. She was treasured among us. When I first arrived, I was trying to set up a meeting of official and unofficial leaders of the congregation, and one of my collaborators insisted that we couldn't have a meeting without Betsy there. And just last year, a newer person in the congregation wanted to send a card to Betsy, someone who had never met her in person, but knew her from when she would sporadically share her joys and sorrows during the service via Zoom. Betsy always felt important in our congregation, and I think that's because she always treated everyone like they were important. Betsy and her husband Chad came to the UUSA when they returned to Amherst in the 1980s, and they joined the congregation officially in 1987. Betsy and Chad were instrumental in establishing a homeless shelter for women in Amherst, a safe place where women could bring their kids with them. This was a real gap in services in our area. The shelter was called Rosemary's Place. The shelter closed after 2 years as other service organizations offered new programs, but the organization formed to operate the shelter, Amherst Friends for the Homeless, kept going with an annual event called Shelter Sunday, in which volunteers canvassed the town, soliciting donations door to door for the Amherst Survival Center, First Call for Help, Grove Street Inn in Northampton, and Not Bread Alone. Though the organization Amherst Friends for the Homeless was dissolved in 2017, the tradition of Shelter Sunday lives on in an annual appeal to benefit Craig's Stores and Not Bread Alone. And I will be thinking of Betsy when I make my donation this October, and I hope you will as well. And I think it goes without saying that Betsy recruited many members of our congregation to participate in these efforts. We remember Betsy as being generous with her time and attention. She used her professional skills as a teacher in our religious education program. She sang in the choir. She helped our congregation throw its epic Emily Dickinson weekend fundraisers, and she always had something for the congregational auction or rummage sale. Betsy was an active participant in our small group ministry, and she had the reputation of writing her thoughts down before meetings. And she was even generous with her home, hosting many of her fellow UU members during their times of life transition. Betsy and Chad developed a wonderful friendship with Helene Lambert and her partner Ted Ennis, whom they met at the UU. They spent many winters in Florida together, having outings and family time, attending the opera. Even later in life, after Chad and Ted were gone, Betsy and Helene talked every day and shared their lives with one another. Betsy had other meaningful friendships and social commitments, far too many to list, but here are a few. She participated in a collage group and a drama group in which people got together and read plays out loud. Betsy always reading elegantly, even after she began to struggle with her sight. Though Betsy had very high standards for herself and for others, she never missed an opportunity to lift another person up. She was a shining and stalwart soul. When she said she was going to do something, it got done. I'm seeing a lot of nods. We remember her as kind, elegant, well-spoken, intelligent, determined, witty, generous, and lovely. We remember her as someone who shaped our congregation for decades with quiet leadership and a strong moral compass. Our congregation is better for Betsy choosing to be part of it. Betsy, thank you for sharing your life with us.
The next hymn is 485 in the Pilgrim hymnal. be seated. And now we have a series of reflections and eulogies and memories and stories, beginning with Andrew.
Well, Betsy would certainly appreciate this gathering. She was never shy about receiving an accolade or two. And I'm sure she was anticipating a gathering such as this on her 100th birthday, and where accolades, all hard-earned and well-deserved to be sure, would flow, as would her love flow back to you. I have a friend from high school who knew Mom pretty well. As he lived with us for a few months, and when I called him to give him the news of her death, he said, "She was such an engaging person." And that struck a chord with me. I remember how she was often willing to engage with me as an argumentative adolescent boy who was just trying to make a case. She would entertain it. A reasoned argument was interesting to her. And this sense of engagement and curiosity into the mind of another person is what I often think about when I reflect upon her life. It is one of the reasons you are all here today. You have experienced that engagement. When she conversed, she wanted to know what you were thinking about, where you were from, what you did, what you were planning to do, what you were reading. Yes, reading. One of her other ways to engage with the world through the mind of another. Learning, yes, but also just the sheer enjoyment of entering fully into another place and time. Reading stories in which to discover what humans have been thinking about through the ages. The love of reading was one of her great gifts to me. She started to read to me at a very early age. The classic children's books at first, Ugly Duckling, Stuart Little, etc. Then a bit later, the legendary Winnie the Pooh. When I hear Mom's voice reading to me, it's through Winnie the Pooh. There was nothing I loved more than to snuggle up with my mom and be read to. Then came some young adult books. I especially remember her reading to me Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. The tale of a lonely young girl living in a big house that had a mysterious, overgrown, walled and locked garden. For a child with an imagination, this was catnip. Then I reached the age when I started to read the books that she was reading, whatever was lying around the house. It was not long before I discovered the genre that ran through both of our lives, the mystery novel or crime fiction. The mystery novel was kind of a river we were always traveling on, with the classic writers of literature, popular novels of the day, history, etc. on either bank. We loved discovering an author we liked who had a series. Oh, joy. I probably started with the doyenne, Agatha Christie, and then moved on to the classic American detective story writers, such as Dashiell Hammett, Raymond Chandler, Ross MacDonald, and then the spy novels, such as those written by John le Carré, which she loved, many, many others. As I became older and we started an adult relationship, that took a while, we would discuss our reading and exchange recommendations. On the phone, it would be, oh, just a minute, let me get a pencil and paper, and then we just pause, and then she'd come back and she'd say, now, okay, how do you spell that? And she'd write down the recommendation. And of course, trips to the library together. Early on in Bethesda, and then here in Amherst as well, we loved the library. Wandering around all those books, the feel of a sanctuary, this very library right next door, the Jones Library. Late in life, as she became unable to read the text in most books, my wife Kathy recommended she use a Kindle reader. She resisted at first, but then came to love it and was able to download the library books and, of course, expand the text. Sometimes there were only 4 or 5 words on the page, but it worked. So engagement with people and their minds were central to Mom's life, in person and through reading, as was love. Love of her family, love of friends, love of nature, Cape Cod, art, gardens, and let's not forget food. Peace and justice as well. In the vein of love, I am going to end with a poem. Now, I'm not a reader of poems, but Mom loved poems. In fact, just a few years ago, she set herself a task. By the way, setting herself tasks was one of her characteristics. She derived great satisfaction if by the end of the day, her tasks had been completed. Of course, if she had not been able to complete one, she would have an explanation for you. Anyway, she set herself the task of memorizing a poem every week, and she memorized a goodly number. There are 2 things I like about this poem. Number 1, it's really short. And number 2, I think Mom would agree with what the poet is saying. Late Fragment by Raymond Carver. And did you get what you wanted from this life? Even so, I did. And what did you want? To call myself beloved, to feel myself beloved on the earth.
I follow that one. That was really great, Andrew. I'm Sarah, and thank you guys for being here today on a beautiful summer day. I know it's not easy to take time away from a weekend in New England, and it means so much to all of us to have extended McLeod family and dear friends here. As the minister noted, the timing also coincides with what we would have been doing normally around this time, August 20th, celebrating Mom's 99th birthday with lobster, chocolate cake, and Flavors ice cream. We really feel fortunate as well to be holding this service in the sanctuary that has particular meaning for the McLeod Johnson family. It's where my mom and dad married almost exactly 75 years ago and started on their adventure as a married couple together. Many children, jobs, and countries later, they came full circle and returned to this special place where they enjoyed many happy years with good friends involved in the social activism they both embraced. Mom and Dad loved the UU community, and Mom cultivated multi-generational friendships through her bridge playing, play reading, learning in retirement, and other activities she loved that have been mentioned. When you're as lucky as I am to have had a mother like mine, a woman beloved by all who knew her, It's hard to try to find the words to capture everything that she meant to me and my family and do her remarkable life justice. Should I talk about her incredible zest for life and optimism, her deep interest in people, her curiosity, her love of books and learning that Andrew's just referenced, her caring, her selflessness, her discipline and hard work, her beauty, her intellect? I've been mulling the profound influence that she had on the way I, too, try to approach life and want to honor her by focusing on but a few of these admirable qualities. Most of you here are either related to Mom or dear friends who knew her well, so you have experienced the full Betsy Johnson in all of her glory. She had many of the qualities cited as key to living a long, and as she was often heard to say, rich, full life: social connections, gratitude, and resilience. She was our rock, and she was always there for each of us whenever we needed her. Whenever I was feeling down about the world, politics, COVID, the environment, Mom would straighten me right out by saying, "I just don't know any other way to be but optimistic." She was a glass half full kind of person and would always say, "You catch more bees with honey." I never understood why I would want to catch more bees. But it was Mom's way of saying, be positive in your outlook and dealings with people, and you will have a better response. True, true. And even more remarkably, as she aged, she continued to be willing to adapt and change in a positive way, observing herself dispassionately and committing to do better with a lot of humility. She was one of the most hardworking and disciplined people I have ever known. As Andrew pointed out, if the physical therapist told her to do 100 sit-ups, she would never stop at 99. She had her bounds, the things she was bound to do each day. That may have included writing letters and thank you notes, walking up and down the driveway 20 times with her sticks, or cooking a meal for someone in need. And she was resilient. Having been challenged many times in her life, she spent long periods of her childhood in bed as a young girl when she had osteomyelitis. Her first child, David, was born with Down syndrome. Her beloved older brother, Mickey, died at 38. Later, she lost her husband, broke her hip, had a heart attack. She was tested, but she always got back up and kept going. Perhaps this is why her last 6 months, during which time she never complained and questioned, "Why me?" were so tough for her to endure. She'd always been able to bounce back before with enough hard work and grit. This time, even though she was loath to admit it, she couldn't will herself to live, even though her spirit wanted to keep going. I was heartened to hear her say to the palliative care doctor one day, though, "If I die today, I will have lived a long and happy life, surrounded by the love of family and friends." Music to my ears. Mom had an adventurous spirit. As a Foreign Service wife, she embraced each posting, which included Italy, Germany, and Japan, with enthusiasm, immersing herself and the rest of us in the local culture. She never understood why most of the wives were pining for South Bend, Indiana, or wherever they called home. In fact, she was a bit despondent when we moved back to Bethesda, and even more so when my father switched jobs on the eve of our departure for Addis Ababa. I'm not sure she ever completely forgave Dad for that. But she still managed to get some exciting trips in, including a strenuous trekking trip to Nepal without Dad in her mid-50s. Above all, she loved people. She was endlessly curious and a great conversationalist. She really wanted to know all about you. And although she could hold court at times, she was also a great listener. As such, she was a much sought-after friend, companion, and dinner guest. She loved helping people and always put the needs of others before herself. As noted, she and my dad often took people in who needed a place to stay while going through a difficult time. Family was everything to Mom, and she and Dad were grandparents extraordinaire. My children, Sophie, Sam, and Chad, reaped the benefits of being the first and oldest grandchildren, as well as the geographically closest. And over the years, our kids spent many happy times with these two remarkable people. She showed a deep and abiding love for each of her children, their partners, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, in both word and deed. I am definitely channeling my mom in my interactions with my two little grandchildren, and let me tell you, it's exhausting. I have barely skimmed the surface of all my mom's wonderful qualities and what she meant to me and my family. I hear her voice reminding me to look on the bright side, spurring me on each day. If I can be half the mother and grandmother she was, I will be a very lucky woman indeed.
Hi, I'm Emily. I don't know how I can follow all of that because they said everything I was going to say. So, but I just want to welcome all of her friends and family here. You know, when I arrived here 5 years ago during COVID, actually was on my way to Mexico and I got stuck here, and Mom and I we were a pod. And I don't know if you recall those lovely days, but in addition to wiping down every single bag of food and gathering all the Amazon bags, you know, that were coming out, that were arriving, we cooked together. And Mom was a great cook. We were different. I would say that Mom was type A and I'm type ADD. And you can see by my notes, where am I? But nonetheless, we had a great time. We actually enjoyed cooking for each other. Mom made a wonderful steel oats breakfast. She had a rigid schedule, and she had her toast every morning at 6, and then later she had her oatmeal, and I really enjoyed that oatmeal with some maple syrup. And then at lunch she had her sandwich and her soup, her delicious lentil soup, and then I would make the evening meal. And she always was so, and actually I'm a good cook, but I'm more ad hoc, and whatever's there, I'll put it together. But I was so grateful that she enjoyed the meals that I made and that we enjoyed that time together. We were kind of stuck together, but we enjoyed it. And then soon after, I actually started working in Cape Cod, and I would come home every few weeks, and I would always bring back lobster. And she, as Andrew and Sarah noted, loved lobster rolls, and that was a great pleasure again for both of us. But as some of you know who have lived or worked in Cape Cod, you actually can get sick of lobster. So I started bringing back fresh fish. And, you know, Amherst is a great place, but there's really not great fish here. So, and it was just wonderful because I would bring it to her and she was so happy, and I would cook it for her, and she's, you know, just the pleasure that she had in it. I can't tell you how good it made me feel to cook for my mother and for her to enjoy it. And, you know, she cooked for her friends too. She was a wonderful friend, as everyone has noted. Again, she had a list, call so-and-so on this date, call so-and-so on that date, this is the birthday. But, however, she was also really in tune with what was going on with her friends. She thought about them. She might say something, you know, I haven't heard from Helene for a while, I think I'll give her a call. Or Frida isn't feeling well, can you drive over with me to bring her some lentil soup, the lentil soup, which was so delicious. She had a friend out in Seattle, Washington, who was alone and not really visited much by her, their family, a friend from Japan, and she would call her once a week just to make sure that she was doing okay. And so Sarah and Andrew have also spoken about reading, so I won't go into that, but she actually was my teacher in Nichimachi school and for kindergarten. And she did tell me that, well, you know, I must not have really liked sharing, apparently, my mother with 15 to 20 other students, because I and my best friend, Joe Silverberg, tried to work us each day. Nonetheless, she taught us how to read, and I know I knew how to read at least by the end of kindergarten, if not before. Andrew talks about Mom reading to her every night. When we were in bed, and you know, Sarah and I actually shared a room for 13 years. We had the proverbial line down the room, but I too remember Mom sitting in our room, Sarah and I, our heads back, eyes closed, and Mom was in a little rocking chair in the corner, and she was reading Wind in the Willows, Little Women, and you said it, Andrew, The Secret Garden. And so here we are, our heads are back and we're off in India, and then we're wondering, what's going to happen with Mary and Dickon, and, are they going to heal themselves with the secret garden as we all, as we wished. And yet, she would do each chapter, and then she would say, we would want to know what's going on, and she would say, well, this is done, and we'll finish tomorrow. And so her chapter is finished. Her book is done. I actually, sorry, before I go, I just want to say something about her osteomyelitis. She actually read, I'm sorry, I'm kind of overwhelmed right now, but when she was 12 or 13, she had osteomyelitis. And when I was a kid, I noticed a scar on her leg, and I said, "What's that from?" And she said she had bone cancer. And she was in bed for many months. And she said, well, it was really enjoyable for her because she could just sit and read all day. And I thought about it as I was looking at her reading one day, how engrossed she was, how that really was the essence of Mom. And just like my father, Chad, was most at home on the tennis court, reading was where Mom, it was her happy place. It was where she was the most authentic. And I think the body keeps the score. We are psychologically and physiologically we marked by what happened to us when we were children. And so I think that really, at risk of saying a bad pun, or excuse me, a bad, that because of her bones, reading was in her bones. And so now her book is finished. We're left like a good book wanting more. But I have a feeling that an epilogue is being written in the spirit world. And in the spirit world, Mom is now with Chad, our father, with their son, David, our beloved brother, with her brother, John, our beloved Uncle John and Uncle Norman, with her, after so many years, her smart, wickedly funny brother, Alan, our Uncle Mickey, and with her mother and father, Marjorie and Norman McLeod, our Grammy and our granddaddy. They're all intellectuals up there. They're all probably writing something, and I think when we get there, we'll be able to read it. And so I want to thank you all for coming.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sam McLeod. I'm Betsy's nephew, one of many who are here. I'm honored to be invited to say a few words about my beloved Aunt Betsy. Betsy was a member of my family, and I'm going to take the liberty of saying on behalf of all the cousins and the greater clan here that she was truly beloved by us all. And I venture to say that everyone here, that she was cherished in her own way. Growing up for me, Betsy was the glamorous aunt. She traveled the world, and we didn't necessarily see her all the time, but if you look at the photos, my mom's wedding photo, Betsy had it. She had it before there was it. And we would talk about that. She was I can understand how Chad was smitten by Betsy, even as a child. I became closer to Betsy when she and Chad moved back to Amherst in the late 80s. Betsy was up here. In my mind, she was managing the oversight of the project of the house on Southeast Street. A new garage was built, a new apartment, and Betsy was there daily. And I saw her interacting with all the workers and the contractors, right builders. And I have to say, they really respected her. She was on top of things. And she invited me to paint. I was a contractor at the time, to paint the house. And, you know, when I think about Betsy, for me, it's her warm personality and sense of humor that I always come back to. It's just the way we interacted. And when she was working on that house, I remember she was busy talking to all the workers and, you know, here's what we're going to do. But she really enjoyed picking the colors for the different rooms. It was kind of her fun, creative process. And I'd listen to her, and I never chose colors as a painter. I learned. And with Betsy, that was a good decision. I wound up painting every room in the house twice. Except for the bathroom and the hallway, which I painted 4 times. And she settled on that bright, deep magenta color, kind of like Sarah's dress, that somehow brought it all together. I mean, she did a great job, and we would talk to each other, and we would laugh about her creative process. She had this great capacity to engage. It was always fun. Betsy was fun for all my life. But she wasn't just fun, she was warm and inviting. When my wife Lori came to the United States, Betsy threw a party for her at her house and invited everybody, a welcoming party. And it made a big impression. The Klan was here. It was a wonderful day. We could see the hill. And she invited to have a baby shower at her house. This is Betsy. This is what she did. She always made people feel good. And you felt it. And one day when we were sledding on the hill with the kids, I wanted to go to the hill because we did it as kids, and it was a snowy day finally. So we were tobogganing down McLeod Hill. And after we finished, Betsy was watching us in the window. We went up inside, and she invited us in, and we were talking, and she invited us to stay at the house. To live there. And I was like, wow, this was a surprise. Because I know Betsy. She's a very thoughtful and considered person. And I said, Betsy, are you sure? Do you understand that we don't really have the most pristine lifestyle? I warned her twice. But she was serious, and she has more wisdom than I ever did. And she's like, no, I would love it if you could live here. And we did. We moved in. She moved into the smaller apartment, and everything was prepared. She had people helping. Julie were there cleaning everything, as Betsy would. And at that time, when we moved in, everything was perfect. But we had a great decade living together. And her generosity and warmth made a big impact on me, my family, my kids, the development of my kids. What a role model. With Betsy, it was just a wonderful place to live. And the things that I think about when I think about Betsy are simple things. It's just little memories come to mind. Walking up and down the driveway, which she did regularly. Betsy was so disciplined. And even if she, after she had fallen and hurt her hip and Elizabeth was with her, they bonded, she was determined and she did it daily. And I'd be busy with all the things I'd do. I'd go to work, I'd come back, but I'd always see Betsy walking up and down the driveway. And I'd stop and chat with her because we loved to talk. And before I could get a word out, she'd look at me and she goes, "Lap number 9. I go, "Really?" "Lap number 2. I'm like, "Really? How many are you going to do?" 10. It was a routine, and it was fun. And then we'd sit and talk about other things, but she was on it. Coming over to our house, have a glass of wine with Lori and I in the living room, in the comfortable area by the porch. Sometimes she'd have 2 wines, 2 glasses of wine, and then she'd say, "I think I should stop." My friends always wanting to talk to Betsy at any party that we had. Everybody loved Betsy. She's fun. She's interesting. She listens. She sees you. She has this little smirk, that just a wry comment that she would let sit perfectly. And I wake up sometimes early in the morning, busy. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. My mind is scattered. I go to my computer, and somehow I couldn't sleep that night. So I wake up early, and I'm sitting here, and we share a wall between the kitchen of the apartment and our own kitchen. And I would hear Betsy making her steel oats or whatever she's doing, like clockwork. And I'm like, wow, I woke up early today. And it kind of resonates with me. I'm like, okay. She would invite me to her apartment in the evenings at various points in time. She'd invite me into her room when she was watching TV. "Hey, have a seat, Sam. Would you let me talk to you?" And whatever the conversation was, whether it was politics, whether it was how you doing, whether it was her groups and all her groups, or who she was talking to, I'd come in and she'd always be talking to somebody, her friends who she cherished, her family, on the phone with Sarah often, my uncles, who she loved, John and Norman. Betsy was the center, in my mind, of their universe. Norman would call her, blah, 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 blah. John would call her, blah, 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 blah. And then Betsy, in her way, would say, "Hey, what's going on?" Betsy was in the center. She was always bringing people together. They loved her, and she loved them dearly. And I know she loved my dad dearly, and I believe, she made me feel as though I had a special place, which she did for all of you as well, I'm sure. And you felt it. She really meant it. Betsy was all about the heart, but she was serious, disciplined. She combined her mom, Grammy, our beloved Grammy, her discipline, but Betsy took it and added her own personality and warmth, such as Grammy had later on in life, when she was independent, and her own sense of humor. Betsy was just fun. I'm sure she was an unbelievable teacher. With Betsy, my kids really had they gained a third grandmother, someone who attended events, someone who would show up at ballet rehearsals, music recitals, events, whatever it was. And it made a huge difference, I believe. She was a trusted confidant of my kids who could have another adult to talk to, who wasn't their parents, who were firm for the most part and caring, but Betsy had a way. She had a way. She would talk to Will when Will would come back later in high school. "What are you doing?" And she'd come up to me and she goes, Will is really doing some things. You should talk to him. She would read books. I asked Will which book it was, Fathers and Sons. I don't know what the book is, but she would share this with him, or she'd ask him, what are you doing? Elizabeth and Betsy had a special bond. And maybe it occurred when Betsy broke her hip. Elizabeth was there with her. And Lori and I were out of the house, and Betsy had a fall, and it was my mother-in-law and Elizabeth. And Elizabeth, at second grade, third grade, had to translate between my Betsy and my mother-in-law in the emergency room. And Betsy was sitting there in pain, but concerned for Elizabeth. This is Betsy. She loved everybody. And they were like this. And you could see it. You can see it in the photos. You could feel. We had a dinner at our house once. And this was, maybe we'd been at the house for a few years. And Betsy noticed, Elizabeth was trying to be attentive. And Betsy noticed this. And she decided she was going to lighten the mood. So she kind of looked at Elizabeth and made a face. And I was surprised. And Elizabeth giggled, of course. And then Betsy leaned in, and then she spoke really slowly, keeping the face, and asked Elizabeth a really direct question. And Elizabeth lost it. She was just in a fit of laughter. She couldn't control herself. You may not remember it, Elizabeth, but I remember it. And that's Betsy. She would lighten the room. It was perfect. That's just what she would do all the time. And she was never, in my mind, one for accolades about herself. She was a great friend to my mom, Sabra. And, she would call my mom her sister, and I could understand that because growing up on the farm with her brothers, she was the only girl there. And, I get the feeling from all the stories, they worked hard. I mean, Granddaddy, they had that farm, and Betsy would tell me stories that I learned through the years that I hadn't heard before about just how hard John had worked on the field. And Betsy would, before she went to school in the morning, she would go to she would take care of the chickens and then go to class. They would ride horses together up Station Road. And I was like, really? She's like, yeah, it was a dirt road. She grew up in a great existence and retained a lot of the values of her parents. But she was always caring. With my mom, when my mom was in later years having difficulties, Betsy would come and take her to dinner. Drive her shopping, bring her to the house regularly. Never say, I would just discover it. She wouldn't say anything about it. Betsy never wanted any attention, but she loved her sister, my mom. I remember after my mom died, going to a wedding in Seattle. It was my nephew David, and Betsy was always fun to me. My brother James, at this wedding, stood up proudly to introduce Betsy to everyone. Proudly. I'd like to introduce you to the matriarch of our family. My mom had just died. I was sitting next to Betsy. Betsy had come out, Sarah flew with her on the plane, and she was at our table. And Betsy looked at me, as she would. She goes, oh, I don't know if I really want to assume that title. And I looked at Betsy because we were always very direct. I said, well, Betsy, you are the matriarch of the family. She's like, and then I waited about 10 seconds and I said, would you like a drink? To which she replied, yeah, I would, with a smirk. Make it a good one. And we laughed because Betsy was just always so much fun to be with. Any event, I cherished our conversations, whatever the topic. She just had this look in her eye, subtleness about her, and precision of communication. I would sometimes walk away and listen to what she said, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe she just weaved those three things into that one sentence, always with a sense of humor. To me, Betsy was a very good friend, a very good friend. We became very close, and I loved talking with her. She was a voice of wisdom and a loving member of my family. And thinking of Betsy just always brings a smile to my face and a warm feeling in my heart. I loved her dearly. I still feel her presence. We all love Betsy, and we're so fortunate. I'm fortunate to have had someone such as Betsy in my life. My family is fortunate. My kids are fortunate. We are all fortunate. What a great life. This just makes me feel wonderful to talk about my Aunt Betsy. Think about it, just the impact she had on us all. It's all about love. Thank you.
Good to see everyone. I'm Sam Myers. I'm one of Betsy's grandchildren. And I have a quick poem here to read, but I'll just say that amazing speeches by everyone here. And obviously a service for your grandmother could be perceived as a very sad day, but I view this as a very happy one because I'm surrounded by her friends and her family, and that's exactly what she was about. So I think this poem kind of captures that. She Is Gone by David Harkins. You can shed tears that she is gone, or you can smile because she has lived. You can close your eyes and pray that she will come back, or you can open your eyes and see all that she has left. Your heart can be empty because you can't see her, or you can be full of love that you shared. You can turn your back on tomorrow and live yesterday, or you can be happy for tomorrow because of yesterday. You can remember her and only that she is gone, or you can cherish her memory and let it live on. You can cry and close your mind, be empty and turn back, or you can do what you would want, smile and open your eyes, love and go on.
Chad Johnson was a pretty funny guy. And he would make my mother laugh. And you knew when you really got her, when she was laughing, she would make no sound. She was... Thought I'd throw that in there. Well, thank you all for being here today, whether in person or online. I think that's cool, to honor and celebrate the life of my mom, Betsy Johnson. I'm Jeff, her son, and consistent with the theme today is, I'm just one of many, many, many good friends of hers. With her friends, she shared her love of life, her love of good food, we've mentioned that, her love of gardening, her love of language, And I think I read The Secret Garden as well, so that seems to be a theme. Though, I think at one point I found my secret garden, and if you guys can look that up if you like. She was always seeking a way also, as you talked about, to test and hone her mind, and I'm glad who mentioned that, was that about memorizing poems. And I'd like to read the opening stanzas of one of those poems. I'm not going to read the entire poem, but it's called The Mercy Supermarket. It's by Campbell McGrath, who she may have taught at Sidwell back in the 70s when she was there. He was a kid back then. And I'll just read it. Everything is alive. Everything is shimmering with vitality. The tomato rootlings in their fragile sheaths of soil, oil-colored worms in leaf mulch, pollen from the burst open canoe-shaped pods of the royal palms caught in the first imperious shafts of sunlight rising from the sea. One flower resembles a puff of red lint, another resembles a pig's ear. Every petal in this light painted with a deep, lucid particularity. Seconds flare like fireflies in a summer meadow, though they are illusory. Time is not a meadow, but an ocean to be swum endlessly by starlight. Days die, and so do we. Banal, tedious, futile to protest, yet still we argue as if death were a rental car agreement whose stipulations might be recalculated by a helpful service representative. We would talk about that poem, the richness of its imagery and its wit, or whatever else she was reading that week. We had a regular 1 hour or so conversation every Saturday, and I loved to see Uncle John. I sort of took that spot there after she would have that regular 9 to 10 every Saturday. That was, I felt, tried to fill those shoes. And it was great, we would discuss, the doings of her lovely granddaughter, Juliana, and her exploits, as well as Mom's, among other things, her weekly bridge game with her friends, how she would review the hands that she played. Did I play that correctly or not? I should have, yeah. I came in fourth. I'm kind of disappointed. And she would let me know how much she enjoyed her friends as they dealt with, together, with great humor and fortitude, the various slings and arrows that came their way. She loved her friends dearly, and we loved her back. I'll just close with the last few stanzas of that particular poem I just read, where the protagonist has just received God's blessing from someone they have helped. Dearest God, I thank you for this blessing, though I cannot believe in it or you. Nonetheless, I honor your name for allowing me tenancy on this, your firmament, and I accept its provision as my lot. If sorrow is the sentence, I will serve it. If pain is your message, I receive it. Leaves are trembling in an otherwise imperceptible breeze. I watch their dance of accommodation and delight, moved by invisible forces. So, too, do I tremble. So am I moved. Right now, I tell you, I am listening to something that says, let it go. Fear not. Rise along with me into a sky the color of amethyst and copper dust. It is not a voice. It is not even a bird, but I am listening. I believe it may be the light itself speaking to me, because the sun has arrived, robed in gold, as the sun is continually arriving at one horizon only to depart from another. It is perpetual daybreak, do you see? It is time's corolla, time's counterweight to the pendulum of our grief. It is that all-consuming journey into radiance, the dawn.
everyone. I'm Sophie Myers-Wilcoxon. I'm Betsy's oldest grandchild. So while I knew this day would come, it's a strange feeling to be back here without my grandmother, Graham, also being here with us. I know I'm extremely lucky to have a grandmother as involved and as with it as Graham was for as long as I did. But Graham was such a permanent, impactful presence in my life. And I suppose I thought she would somehow defy the laws of science and always be around, that I would always have this person who was just pure joy and love, someone with the best laugh, the most determined, hardest worker, best listener, funny, smart, all the things you've heard about. And while it's extremely sad to acknowledge that I'm saying goodbye to Graham, I could not be luckier to have a treasure trove of memories that I hold close and can draw upon whenever I miss her. And you've already heard so many stories about Graham's admirable qualities, so the thing I'm going to speak to is what an amazing grandmother she was. Having Graham as a grandmother is what I imagine over the river and through the woods to grandmother's house you go would be like in real life. My two brothers and I were lucky to spend most holidays, vacations, and many weekends with Graham and Granddad, often here in Amherst. To say that we were spoiled with love and attention would be an understatement. Christmas was magic, lighting candles and singing carols on the way to bed in anticipation of Santa's arrival, going tobogganing on the hill behind the house, taking long walks in the snow-covered woods and cozying around the living room, opening presents. Spring brought Easter egg hunts, summer was the 4th of July parade and the common back here, fall was for hay rides, picking out Halloween pumpkins. This was all these amazing traditions. As a result, everything was special and a core memory, but for Graham, it was just how things were done. Outside of holidays, she was involved in so many aspects of my life. When our family came to visit, she would pull out boxes of toys she saved for us, which always seemed to be way better than anything we had at home, even though we had plenty of toys. She loved that I was a huge fan of dolls, just as she was when she was a little girl. We spent countless hours decorating doll houses, making paper dolls, sewing bespoke clothes for my American Girl dolls. When I had to choose a pen pal for my elementary school project, Graham was the natural choice. She diligently wrote me letters acknowledging my goings-on about soccer and my friends, and she shared stories about her life in childhood. We spent many vacations with Graham, and one of the summer activities my brothers and I looked forward to the most each year was our camp, during which each of us and our Halliwell friend counterparts would spend a week of fun in Amherst. The week began with Graham asking my mom to share any food requests. Apple cider donuts were always at the top of the list, and it only got better from there. Graham drew upon her background as a teacher to divide the day into all sorts of activities: tennis, mini golf, Look Park boat rides, whitewater rafting, nature walks, Monopoly, even cabin cleanup. My friend Lucy had no idea why I was so excited about cabin cleanup, which was essentially cleaning our room. But Graham somehow made it seem fun. She would always come up with an idea for a special project that we would complete throughout the week, the most memorable one being creating a quilt filled with fabric of our favorite colors and family photographs. We often ended the day playing spoons, and I can still hear Graham laugh as we looked at each other across the table, while Granddad continued to pass the cards round and round, not realizing he had lost the game 10 minutes ago. Graham joined our family vacations, including a trip we took to Costa Rica my senior year of college. While my roommates were spring breaking in Cancun, I was bunking with my 85-year-old grandmother. While some might not have been thrilled with this arrangement, Graham and I had the best time, and we got a kick out of walking back to the hotel housekeeping, who thought our room was inhabited by honeymooners. So each evening we would eagerly walk back to the room, trading guesses about which animal housekeeping had crafted with our shower towels, and if there would be rose petals covering the bed. I was lucky enough to have Graham here to be an active participant in some of my most important milestones. My husband Dane and I got married in her backyard, and we had the added benefit of getting to spend many afternoons with Graham after various wedding planning activities. She always made quiche, Dane's favorite, and took great pleasure in him enjoying it during lunch on her back porch. She patiently put up with a few of my bridezilla moments, and I heard numerous stories from friends and family after the wedding about what an impression Graham made on them. She had this way of just making people feel like they were the most important person in the room and knowing exactly the right thing to say to make you feel comfortable and understood. She also had quite the sense of humor. My friends loved to tell the story of Graham coming into her room when we were all getting ready and seeing me in my wedding dress for the first time. She entered the room and said deadpan, "How do I look?" Most recently, she had embraced the role of great-grandmother, getting to know my son Jack, who you've seen scampering around here, and sending letters and birthday gifts, and at one point remarking on Jack's impressive transportation skills, aka learning to walk. One of her last gifts she gave to me was staying alive until my younger son Hayes was born at the end of April. And she didn't say this, but I know that it was important to her to be there and make sure she knew we were all healthy, and she got to meet him via FaceTime. Suffice it to say, Graham set the gold standard for being a grandparent, and as my mom stated, my parents frequently say they're channeling Graham as my sons basically run us all ragged, and because of that, we continue to reap the benefits of Graham's legacy. There's just a few things that I think Graham would want me to say today that are somewhat about others, because that was just the person who she was. She was always thinking about other people in addition to herself. I can just hear her saying, "Oh, Sophie," and dispensing some sort of life advice or story. So firstly, I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that my parents have also set the gold standard for adult children behavior. Not only when Graham was sick, but for the years before that. Graham was always included in our family trips, especially to Cape Cod, her favorite place, and my mom made sure that we always had room that met Graham's standards, which were high, setting out toast and jam so she had it when she woke up each morning. Graham also adored my father. She was always excited to see him for his company, but also because he was always at the ready for her various list of things that needed to be fixed whenever he came in the door: iPads, Kindles, phones, TVs. Graham was extremely self-sufficient and not demanding at all, but my parents were there for whatever she needed, and it's truly admirable, if not a little intimidating. Secondly, while I had the benefit of being the oldest grandchild, as well as geographically the closest, Graham would want me to say what she told me in person many times, which was that being involved in all of her grandchildren's lives was of the utmost importance to her, and her extended grandchildren as well. She would sometimes lament that she was not as young and therefore not able to do as much for my cousins as she had done with my brothers and me. However, her thinking about not being good enough was equivalent to someone else's 150%. She always was up to date on each grandchild's life, events and accomplishments, made regular trips to Maryland and California for extended visits, and truly cherished getting to know each grandchild deeply and individually. I'm sure there are stories I will wish I had shared today, because I have countless to choose from, and how can I do someone like Graham justice? Throughout all our moments together, Graham was not only creating memories, but also setting an example of how to be a good person, how to live, and how to love. While Graham is no longer here to dispense her stories or advice, she set a blueprint that will guide me through life's highs and lows, which is a gift I will cherish forever.
We've got one more. Let's warm up the machine here. We'll get Chad from, where is he? Bali. We want to make sure we've got sound, so bear with me. Let's make sure, hold on one second. I work for the Department of Technology. Hold on a second. Eric? Stand by. Yeah, hold on. Yes, it is. Yeah. Get it unmuted.
Hello, everyone. Good to see you. So I've been struggling own speech with your own stories of why she meant so much to you. And of course, I'm biased, but I've never seen somebody mean so much to so many people. And to have all of those connections be sincere and genuine. So with that said, I won't try and summarize all there is to say about Graham. That's an impossible task. I'm not going to tell you all what kind of person she was, because you already know, and that's why you're here. And the beautiful thing is, she was someone special to each and every one of you. That was part of her superpower, to make you feel seen and valued and loved uniquely. So instead of trying to encompass all of that, I'm simply going to read a brief note. I never had a chance to give her her last days in hospice, but I'm sure she knew, but it says something about what she meant to me. Dear Graham, I struggle to express how much I love and admire you, and how grateful I feel to have you be such a shaping force in my life. There have been many times I feel I've lost my way, and equally many, your voice has been the one in my head to help me find it. You've always led with love, gratitude, patience, and deep trust in the process of doing things the right way. When I'm overwhelmed, anxious, despairing, or unsure of where to lead my life, I think of you and it gives me peace and perspective. I'm so grateful for the love and effort you've given to your family, and I hope that I can carry your legacy forward. I don't know what else to say other than I love you, which of course you know, but I will say it anyway. Love always, Chad. So with that, I'll leave one last note. They say you only die the last time someone says your name, but I would say it's rather the last time others feel your influence. She's shown us all how to live an exemplary life, to make the most of your own, and to make those of others around you better, to lead with love and gratitude, to show up for yourself every day, and to hold on to the optimism that no matter what's going on in your life, good moments lie ahead if you just keep going. So, thank you to each and every one of you for carrying on Graham's legacy and keeping her alive by being your wonderful selves. Thank you.
Let us pray. Gracious and eternal God, your goodness loved us into life, and so our spirits turn to you in humble trust. Amid the decay of visible things, we ask that you draw nigh to us, O invisible Comforter. When the changes of life leave us sadder, help us to know the constancy of your love. O God, before whom generations rise and pass away, we praise you for your servants who live this life with exuberance. And especially today, we thank you for Betsy Johnson. We appreciate her wisdom, her laughter, her generous and open heart, her love for children, her own and all those who crossed her path. We remember with gratitude her grit, her love of the outdoors, her worldview, her appreciation for the least among us, her devotion to her family, Chad, David, Andrew, Sarah, Emily, Jeffrey, and Mark. As we consider what she meant and sense more fully our loss, we ask, O God, that you comfort us. Help us to feel inspired to try to live our lives in light of her example. Remind us that wherever people read to children every night and care for children everywhere, drawing the circle wide, there Betsy Johnson lives on in us. Wherever people inspire others with their action and let their integrity speak for itself, there Betsy Johnson lives on in us. And wherever people live every day with a sense of adventure, never letting adversity dampen their zest for life, there Betsy Johnson lives on through us. O Lord, support us all the day long until the shadows lengthen and the evening comes and the busy world is hushed. And then in thy mercy, grant us each one a safe lodging, holy rest, and peace at the last. Amen.
At this time, we extinguish our chalice. May we each take a little of Betsy's light with us as we go. By her example, let us honor the dignity in every person, be generous with our kindness, and share our light with one another.
Our final hymn is We Gather Together, after which we will sing together the postlude, You Are My Sunshine. Okay, well, let's start with We Gather Together, 21.